Armenia. And a birth certificate was made up and information was sent to Albany, New York, her record birth. Therefore, the hospital never charged my mom, or his mom, and his family. He started school in New York, Bronx, PS 50, and transferred later to another public school, attended high school at PS 98 in the Bronx, Samuel Gompers High School, also in the Bronx. And he gave me the address of the high school. He still remembered it. 1425 Vise Avenue in the Bronx. At 18, he enlisted in the Marine Corps. It was 1942. He did his basic training on Parris Island, South Carolina. Joined the Marine Corps at Petersfield, North Carolina. His squadron formed in 1943, and he gave me the name of the squadron. He still remembered it, VMB 443 Squadron. He went to California then for further training and piloted a couple of times as a flyer in Marine aviation. He also did office services with a Colonel Gould and a Colonel Gillette, his commanding officers. Beginning in 1944, he was shipped to Emaru in the South Sea Islands as the second phase of the operation right after Guadalcanal. He made sure the Japanese were neutralized, and he also made bombing runs on islands surrounding Emaru and the waters and the boats in the area. In 1945, he was sent after 18 months in Emaru. He was sent home, and then he was stationed at another island outside of the United States waiting to get home when he got word that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed. He returned to California, to San Francisco, and there's where the squadron broke up, and he received a 30-day pass home to New York. My grandmother, Grandma Polly, had moved with Dad's sister, Rose, and Dad's brother, Uncle Irving. His cousin Manny invited him to double date with him one night, and to meet another girl on this blind date. She's an easy date, he said. You can make out with her. This was in 1945. There were 4 guys and 4 girls, and the date, of course, was our mom, Elaine. And they went to a movie, and the date really didn't work out very well because she wasn't easy. They went to a car repair place, and where a friend of his worked, but Elaine really didn't want to go. Later, he took Elaine out to eat, and he then called her the next day. My Aunt Barbara answered the phone, but Elaine was really pissed, and she wouldn't come to the phone anyway. Finally, she did. He kept calling, and Dad asked her out for the evening, apologized profusely. He wanted to make up, and she finally said yes. They went downtown, got tickets to a show, and had dinner at an Italian restaurant. Elaine was wearing a white dress, and she spilled sauce on herself. She wanted to go home, but she went to the show anyway, and Dad didn't even kiss her that night. At the end of 30 days, Dad had to return to San Francisco. His leave was up, and Elaine wrote to him often with poems from Elizabeth Browning. Elaine lied about her age. He always thought that she was older. Eventually, he went to Maryland for his discharge beginning in 1946, and then he started steadily dating my mom, who was still in school. He didn't know. She graduated in 1947. Dad thought that Elaine was 19 or 20 years old when he was about 23, 24. Dad was invited to Elaine's 21st birthday party when he discovered how old she really was. She was only 17. Dad was 4 years and 9 months older than her. Nana Henny, my mom's mom, said, "You should have been here last year for her sweet 16. Elaine almost died, and my Julius, was so astonished. And then they started going out every night thereafter. And our Nana and Poppy put a stop to this and said, "You must get your rest. You can't go out every night." Okay, so Julie made a deal. He won't go out with her every night. He'll go out with her Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday instead. They became engaged in 1947. Dad was working in a laundry as a driver, and Mom was working for a company that wrote stories for someone to tell on the radio. He earned $30 a week. On January 17, 1948, they were married on Grand Concourse in New York at a shul and a catering hall. And our papi bought them a house in Queens, and he gave me the address, 8216 251st Street, Belrose. On March 27, 1949, I came along and lived in the Bronx. We started in Belrose and moved to the Bronx. When Mom and Dad were on vacation, not long thereafter, Nana and Papi were staying with me, and Dad then received a notice to report for duty. He was then going to the Korean War. They sold their house on Long Island. My mom and myself, we moved in with my grandparents on Kruger Avenue, and Dad went to the Brooklyn Navy Yard and told he had 30 days to clean up his affairs, and he went back to the Bronx to do so. He was shipped overseas to Korea, but he was only there for a couple of hours when he was shot. And he ended up at St. Albans Naval Hospital, where he stayed 1 year, and that's where the doctors found out he had tuberculosis. And when they operated on the gunshots of his lungs, he lost half of his right lung at that time. When he was discharged, he stayed with my grandparents and eventually decided to move to California in the summer of 1951. They came to Los Angeles, and first Dad went and then Mom followed. And again, Dad worked in a laundry, driving trucks for $70 a week. They moved into a Los Angeles apartment, which Mom didn't like. She moved to San Fernando Valley, and Leslie can attest that that move kept going and going and going. Mom never could stay in one place too long. But when they lived in the San Fernando Valley, that's where Mom became pregnant with Leslie in 1952. Nana Henny came out to visit while Mom was pregnant, and Leslie was born in November, a month earlier than predicted. And that Mom had her induced to be sure that Leslie was born on our papi's birthday, November 28th. They bought a house in Pacoima, California, and he went to work selling house to house. Dishes at $1 down, $1 a week, $49 for a set. He became a manager eventually of the house-to-house selling outfit, and he eventually was offered a piece of the company in either Washington or Oregon, but Mom said, nope, no, we're too far away from family, we've got to go back to New York. And eventually, at this time also, he received a message that that my mother's grandmother was dying and they wanted to move back east, which they did so. In 1955, they did move back east. I was in second grade. Leslie was 3 years old. And the story continued, and I'll stop at that point. But that's as far as I went with Dad. I also made a family tree, which I would like to share with the